Hello and welcome to our Out and Equal 2016 August monthly town call, Next Steps for Employee Resource Groups and Business Resource Groups, or ERG BRGs. My name is Daniel Lawrence Smith, Associate Director of Training here at Out and Equal. A few housekeeping items before we begin. This is a broadcast audio call, so be sure to turn up the volume on your computer or headset. This call will be recorded and available as a digital archive after the call. And we will have some polls and quizzes, so we're going to ask for your active participation during this call. A few announcements at Out and Equal. Our next call will be on September 8th, and that will be our Out and Equal Workplace Summit Know Before You Go call. So for all of you who will be joining us at Summit, this is all the information that you're going to need to have an effective time when you're with us. September 12th will be our monthly trainers forum for our Out and Equal certified trainers. September 15th, we will have another summit webinar presented by our good friends at TI on how to maximize your summit experience. September 28th will be our global town call with perspectives on Italy. September 29th will be our town call on how do we respond, does my company sound LGBT, with our good friend Bob Wittick from Wittick Communications. And of course, October 4th through 7th will be our 2016 Out and Equal Workplace Summit in Orlando, Florida. Our Leadership Day will be Tuesday, October 4th. And at that opportunity, Pat Bailey, Director of Training, and myself will be presenting our Train the Trainer course for all of you who are interested in bringing Out and Equal training back into your workplaces. Let's go ahead and begin with a poll. And the first question is, does your company have an ERG, BRG, affinity group, or diversity council for your LGBTQ and allied employees? And go ahead and put in your answer and then hit submit, and we'll be able to see the results in real time. Great. So we're seeing that the overwhelming majority, over 90%, are saying yes, and only about 2% saying no. Thank you so much. And our next question is, if yes, how long has that group existed? Less than 5 years? More than 5 years? More than 10 years? Or perhaps you're not sure? Okay, so we're seeing about 35% saying less than 5, a good 25% saying more than 5. Again, almost 25% saying more than 10, which is just absolutely amazing. And a few of you aren't quite sure, so thank you so much for your responses with that. Now for our next question, we're going to ask you to chat in your response. So using that chat navigation in the left-hand corner, tell us what the #1 strength of your group is. And I'll go ahead and read that out as you put them in. What is the #1 strength of your group? So using that chat. Okay, motivated leaders, fantastic. Enthusiasm, sense of community, very diverse. Executive sponsorship, well organized. Great fashion, I love it. Working policy, engaged members. Sexual diversity, fantastic. Business opportunity. Passion, sense of inclusion, great. Leadership skill building. Align strategically, fantastic, great. Thank you all for your input. Now, we've asked you what your #1 strength is, so now we're going to ask, what do you think the #1 challenge of your group is? What's your #1 challenge? Senior leadership involvement, great. Direction, participation. Fear to join, interesting. Acceptance. Global participation. Getting all members to help out. Communication. Bureaucracy, communication once again. Structure, again, lack of executive support. Momentum, lack of visibility, poor sponsorship. Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for your feedback with that, and that will definitely help fuel a lot of our conversation today. And we're so fortunate today to have a fantastic group of panelists who will be joining us. And I'm going to give them each just a brief moment, maybe about 30 seconds or so, to introduce themselves to you. And let's go ahead and start with Pat.
Thanks, Daniel. And I'm Pat Bailey, Director of Training at Out and Equal Workplace Advocates. And I'm still seeing lots of great answers coming in. Thank you.
And let's go ahead and keep it going left to right, and we'll go to Isabel.
Hi, everyone. This is Isabel Porras. I am the Associate Director of Research here at Out and Equal.
Thank you, Isabel. And Justin?
Good morning. My name is Justin Epper. I am the Business Program Manager here at Bank of the West and also founder and chair of our Out West LGBT Employee Resource Group.
Fantastic. Thank you, Justin. And Abel?
Hi, everyone. My name is Abel Raposo. I am a sales support consultant with Bank of the West, and I'm also the National Program Manager for our ERG Out West.
Thank you, Abel. And Raul?
Hi all, my name is Raul Circus. I'm the Global Development Lead for Hematology at Shire, and I'm also the President of Be Equal, which is our LGBT and Allies BRG in the organization.
Thank you. And Renee?
Hi, I'm Renee Juneau. I am a Quality Associate at Shire working in the human plasma collection business. I am also the Northern Illinois chapter head for Be Equal, which, as Raul said, is our LGBT plus and allies business resource group.
Fantastic. And Robin?
Hi, everybody. I am a co-chair of the Bisexual Advisory Committee of Out and Equal, and I work as a consultant whose focus includes bisexuality. I'm also a co-founder of an ERG at a university.
Fantastic. Thank you, Robin. The question came in if, as we go through the presentation, if we can also give our pronouns. So perhaps as we're doing our individual segments, I will say for myself, I use male pronouns, he, him, and his. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Pat.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. And I have either he or she, male or female pronouns are good for me. And I'm going to do a little introduction. Over the last years, we've been working with Out and Equal with all the companies that we work with in how do you develop? How do you start the ERG? How do you make an advanced level of that? And so I'm going to kind of give a broad overview of the topics, and then what we'll do is with our presenters and the rest of our panelists be able to talk about that beginning and that more advanced level, and then finally take a look with Robin at a possible case study. What is something that you can do to increase awareness with an upcoming event with Celebrate Bisexuality Day? So we start with employee resource groups or business resource groups or affinity groups or diversity councils, all different names that companies have for that. And Fortune 500 companies right now have about 90 to 95% of them have employee resource groups. And so they've been around for about 30 years. It began back as a result out of the race issues in the 1960s, and the very first one was a black caucus at Xerox that started. Now, I know there's probably lots of debate that goes back on with that because a lot was happening during that time, but it was an opportunity for groups to come together, and it started with the people portion of that, that there's the support to have the discussions based on traits or characteristics or interest-based. And then you've got your career development, your personal development. And then the company went, well, this is a good opportunity for us to work with both the business and the employee goals and begin to get that cultural support, thinking about diversity in our products and outreaching into brand and reputation. What about recruitment and engagement? And then doing events that begin to build that energy. So what we look at is some of those superpowers of your ERG and your BRG. And I would say that visibility and community talks about that X-ray vision. Education and influence, that heavy lift of the work, those big objects that you can hurl across to folks so that they can begin to see how important your group is as an ERG to the company. Recruiting and pretension is kind of that spider sense. How do you talk to employees and get the best and the brightest to come in and begin to work with you? And then finally, driving business value. And I think that's like the Incredible Hulk. You're just going to take it, you're going to move forward and move your company there. And then finally, creating that diverse customer base. And that's super hearing, I think, because you start to say, what are the needs of this group? How do we speak those? We see companies sometimes try to say, well, we're going to have an LGBT emphasis, and they have no one who's LGBT or an ally advising them. And you can really tell that there's some difference. So I've got a poll for you right now that I want to ask you as the audience to rate these 5 areas, 1 being the highest important, 5 being the highest. Just put a number in each one of those boxes and submit those about which ones you think are the most important in terms of what an ERG is doing or where your ERG is right now. So I'll take a minute and let you put those numbers in there, and we'll get some averages here. Right now we've got about 169 people on the call, and so we're working with that. Brian, I see you had a question on audio. Daniel can send you a phone number to call in on if we're having some trouble cutting in and out. And we've got about, let's see, about a third of you have answered so far. So go ahead and hit those results right there. And it looks like right now the highest rating that we've got is around education and influence, followed up pretty closely by visibility and community, and then recruitment and retention, and then kind of close between driving business value and diverse customer base. So great, good inputs on that. So when we look at those values coming in, we begin to see that these are the steps that is a value proposition. When you start talking about this, how do you talk about that? Give employees a chance to develop their leadership skills, access to executives and having those presentations, building ties with the community. You actually show the company values by you wearing your team shirt out and beginning to work out in your community. Supporting and aligning with company priorities. It's a broader reach. It's a brand issue. You begin to say, how can we make sure that we all are engaged in this? And that's kind of the last step there, bringing that to business strategies, that value. And most ERGs have a life cycle. They start with visibility and community, then begin to work within the company, education and influence, and then kind of move into that business area. So I'm going to put a comment up here, and I want to see how much you agree with it one way or the other. My ERG BRG is well organized and vital to the organization. Do you agree? And then go ahead and click your answers and hit submit, and we'll see where they are. And again, there's on some days it might be true, it might not be true, and it may vary on that. But we can see that we feel most people agree that their ERGs are well organized and vital to the organization. About 40% of you do that. And then it's close between strongly agree and neutral, and we've got some folks who are saying, no, I don't quite agree with that. There's some more we need to do. So visually, when we look at this, we see that your members need a value for themselves, what they come in for, what they're looking at, and their organization. Many organizations for best places to work with the Corporate Equality Index has been a big drive. And then getting out in the community. And I think for many, many individuals and members, that is so important for how do we be present, how do we get involved in Pride, how do we do that. So I've got a couple more slides that explain that, but I know we're going to get in more detail with that. So just one more thing to remember with that value proposition. It's about the people, the organization, and the community. So with that, I think I'm turning it over to you, Justin. So there you go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. I wanted to share a little bit of some insights we've had with Out West at Bank of the West in our journey from about 2.5 years old now. But also a lot of this information comes from my personal chair experience for 2 different companies. So a lot of the information we're going to share with you over the next few minutes holds true over 2 different organizations, but you may see it somewhat simple, but also somewhat enlightening and valuable. So first I want to talk about our 2 key points. So we have communication and leadership, and I apologize if this slide looks a little overlapping. These are 2 key success polls that we use in order to frame our ERG as we grew. And we found that due to our dispersed geography throughout the nation, one of our key focuses is making sure that every employee, no matter what time of day or where they're located, has access to this information, and we're able to control the content and deliver on a regular basis. So under communication, we focused first and foremost on LGBT education. It was a huge value proposition to executives, so they are educated, but also a value proposition for the organization to show that we are a resource group that is knowledgeable and experienced. And that included interviews, news from internal and external resources, and making sure that's available internally and externally as appropriate. And then our second piece is leadership. And leadership, as many of you know, is key in order to drive not only the money that you need, but also the engagement that you need. So everything from executives down to the field to business unit management, which we'll talk about. So I wanted to talk about the communication piece. You heard the phrase content is king. It is because content allows you as an ERG to provide not only ongoing facts and figures and statements, but also content through multiple channels that's refreshed and engaging. So when you really think about what can I deliver other than having in-person events, I would always step back and say, what can I deliver that's accessible via online channels, email, your intranet site, newsletters, webcasts, things like that. Because when you think about all the channels that you can deliver in, you can deliver the same message in multiple channels or repurpose the content, then you are already building many ways to connect with the employees. So again, we talked about education. You could talk about current topics and issues. You can talk with local organizations and history and icons that are out there. There's a lot of content that you can leverage for your organization, repurpose, if you will, because you don't have to recreate the wheel. We found that bringing in guest speakers, repurposing content, and providing external links to that content to our employees was a huge eye-opener the first year or so. And I think a lot of our feedback was, thank you for sharing this, thank you for discussing it, thank you for inviting us in order to interact. And that was a simple matter of just coordinating ourselves with speakers and or content. That moved into interviews, both with internal members, our executive management, speaking on video, speaking on calls, speaking at meetings. When they saw obviously an executive or senior executive's face or voice behind the message, it obviously had a great buy-in and value to the members and those potential members. You talk about news. Some people shy away from this particular area when they talk about current events and politics. We take the platform of anything that's positive, equality-based, and doesn't run into the gossip realm, if you will. We feel that we're very comfortable with sharing because, again, we go back to management saying these are relevant things to our employees. And in order for them to bring their authentic selves to work, they have to know that they can have conversations at work, that individuals understand our current environment. When we walk out the door, we're understanding what we have to deal with, no matter what context it is, cultural or location or regional, et cetera. And then again, we go into our resources and we make sure that they have accessibility not only to our resources, but we acknowledge that our community and our nation and online forums have a multitude of LGBT resources, and a lot of employees are just not aware or afraid to ask. So this is a way for us to deliver to them where they can self-serve themselves and take the time to read the material. So again, we're talking about multiple channels. Think about how across these different channels, whether it be email, WebEx versus in-person and WebEx live events, or simple printed material, newsletters, flyers, if you have the ability to have banners at events, even T-shirts that are able to provide and promote your equality, those are great messages and platforms to put them on. And finally, when you think about all this content in the context of what categories are you putting them in? Are you providing them lists and facts, which is great content, but it might not drive them back to those resources again and again. So make sure you are encouraging and integrating stories and series and panels and such that allows you to refresh the content and bring new content in. So that's one of the key things that we use in order to build our particular resource group. Now I'm going to hand it over to Abel, and he's going to talk about the leadership component.
Thanks, Justin. Hi, everyone. So what I'm going to talk about is how we can deliver that communication using various leadership roles. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the different categories of leadership, and the first one is executive management. We leverage this role by using top-down messaging, interviews, and insight, and what this does is it validates the work that the members in the ERGs do, and it allows members to relate to upper management also. In addition, it also adds a lot of strength to our communications. The second category is ERG leadership. And in this category, we really want to fill these roles with people who share their passion for what they do, as well as folks who want to grow professionally and personally. And we definitely want to leverage their skills to add value to our ERG groups. The next leadership role is the chapter leaders or GO Council ambassadors. These are usually people who are already engaged in their local communities. They're definitely forward-thinking and great advisors. Their skill sets also bring value to our groups. And just to give you an example, one of our chapter leaders works in the social media communications department. So when it comes to getting articles out there on things like upcoming events or past events, he not only gets the job done quickly, but he does it very well too. Also, this group is really the voice of the ERGs because what they do is they allow us to deliver the right message to the right audience or community. And finally, we can leverage the business unit's management. Examples of this include our HR department, community LGBT groups and organizations, as well as their leaders and members. We're not necessarily directly involved with these units, but we can use them to leverage communication by taking part in their existing meetings or emails, etc., to really deepen our connections and partnerships. Moving to the top right of the slide, it's very important to remember that these people are volunteers. And so you have to bring some sensitivity and awareness when addressing things like participation issues. We cannot forget that they have responsibilities to their actual jobs that might present challenges regarding their support and involvement within the ERGs. So just something to remember. Next, I just want to point out some of the differences between leaders and the audience or members. Leaders go above and beyond their normal duties and are really driven by pride, exposure, and skill building. They do a lot and make sure to maintain quality job performance by really understanding the balance between their day jobs and their gay jobs, if you will. On the other hand, members are driven by relevance and inspiration. They really want to be a part of something, local and global initiatives, and they really want to be heard. They also are looking to make connections with the community and or clients. And then below that, I'm not going to get into it, but there's a table that shows you the scope and capacity of the leadership roles based on what level you're at. And that's pretty much a little bit about leadership and how we can strengthen our communication. Back to you, Justin.
So just to finish off and hand it back to the presenters, we presented you this material that's just a small slice of what we're presenting at Out and Equal as part of your journey to ERG Success. So we cover these two topics in depth, including a look into the resources and templates and examples, as well as what do those results mean, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So if you wanted more information, obviously post this meeting, you'll have access to this information, or feel free to email us directly. Happy to answer any questions. So back to you, Pat. Or Daniel.
And at this point, we're going to bring on Isabel from our team.
Hello, everyone. This is Isabel. Again, I use she and her pronouns. So the 2016 Leadership Day Seminar Series promises to be super educational and exciting. Justin and Abel have already given you a sense of what to expect from the early ERGs seminar. If you already have an established ERG or BRG but are unsure of what comes next, then the Leadership in BRGs and Advanced ERGs is the right seminar for you. Peer educators from Shire, AT&T, and Jennifer Brown Consulting will provide best practices and opportunities to share how to make the most of the BRG or ERG, how to use the executive sponsor wisely, and become fully integrated in the business case. I'd like to introduce, well, actually before I do that, I'll tell you a little bit more about the day. But Raul Asoikis and Renee Junot from B Equals, which is Shire's, as they mentioned, LGBT plus allies business resource group, are going to be sharing a bit about the material that they'll be covering at that seminar, but I also want to tell you a little bit more about some of the other folks. So additionally, AT&T is going to be discussing ways to maximize engagement, brand visibility, and proving ROI. They're going to demonstrate how to create a program to assist the ERGs with specific, impactful, and measurable activities. On Leadership Day, they're also going to discuss their toolkit creation, which includes guidelines for engagement, event execution, and communication. And folks will be able to begin creating their own toolkit there. As well, Jennifer Brown Consulting and a corporate partner are going to present on the ERG progression model and share best practices on its implementation. So the interactive session is going to teach participants how a progression model is developed, as well as best practices for measuring your ERG's maturity, determining the strategic areas of focus, setting realistic goals, and more. So it promises to be a very engaging, interactive workshop day. And now I'd like to turn it over to Raul and Renee to tell you a little bit more about what they'll be presenting at Leadership Day.
Thank you so much, Isabel. This is Raul, and actually it's going to be interesting because you're going to have an opportunity to hear from different, I would say, companies and sectors in the world. And in this case, actually, Shire is a biotech company and actually dealing especially with rare diseases. So you're going to get an opportunity to hear at least the viewpoint from a medical, pharma, biotech perspective of how we're dealing with. But bottom line, actually, our seminar is dealing with the evolution and meets, the changes that are happening in a day-to-day world in corporate America. If I can have the next slide, please. Thank you. So the interesting part of this thing is that the only thing I can really promise you is change. So sometimes where things are considered business critical, which is not considered business critical, maybe fall through the wayside, and thus we need to figure out how we can, keep relevant the importance of diversity and inclusion, and especially because this sometimes gets to be neglected when stress ramps up in the organization as you're going through different changes. So you have to consider that often the work that we do in this area is discretionary effort by employees, kind of like mentioned before by Abel, to please remember that people are basically volunteering their time. And it's important that you're able to drive and strive actually for continuity as you're pushing forward your BRG under sometimes, exceptional circumstances. So one of the things we're going to be doing in this particular seminar is basically, even though it's based on one experience on a group, our BRGs have gone through Baxter, spinning off into Baxalta, another company, and then just acquired by Shire, and now working as such. So we're going to be sharing strategies we have learned which are relevant to operate in an environment which is constantly changing and most importantly has a lot of uncertainty in it. But there's a way we can survive. And actually, Renee is going to share with you some of the work we're going to be sharing in terms of the workshop and the path we're going to be taking, and then we wrap it up in terms of what we expect you to achieve and also a call to action. Renee?
Thank you, Raul. This is Renee Juno. My pronouns are them and they. Our Leadership Day workshop is going to offer a hands-on exercise and interactive panel where we're going to brainstorm concerns related to major corporate changes, group those concerns into major categories, method, process, tools, people, training, to help us better identify how best to adapt in order to sustain an active and effective BRG through times of corporate transformation. Panel members will share our experiences going through a long period of continuous change, like Raul mentioned, a spinoff and an acquisition in quick succession, and discuss the lessons that this process has taught us. We seek to equip our participants with the tools necessary to assess the challenges they face and take action to meet those challenges successfully.
So the one thing, as I mentioned earlier, and Renee just underscores, that change is constant. And definitely is one of the key elements that we have to be able to figure out how we can best survive. The interesting thing is that one process, one method, one system, one tool is not better than the other. It's just what's important for the circumstances you're at, the level of maturity your BRG or your ERG is at, and also to understand how you best fit in terms of adding value to the organization you are part of. The other thing we're going to be doing is in the panel discussion that we're having is we're going to have members from our Austrian chapter, from our Northern Illinois chapter, from our Cambridge chapter, and also we're going to be bringing in our colleagues from diversity and inclusion. So together we'll be able to provide you an overall perspective of the changes and how we deal with them. I'm not saying that we have the solution for everything or the answers. We can share what we have gone through. And even right now we speak, through Shire, we still have a lot of gray zones, and we're still working into what works best for the new Shire, as we know right now are being acquired by, Baxalta has been acquired by Shire, and we're trying to build a new organization. So we welcome you to come and discuss with us challenges, opportunities, share some of the lessons learned that Be Equal has gone through our metamorphosis. And Pat, I pass it to you, and then of course Renee and myself are available here for questions that may arise.
Hi, everybody.
There we go. You got it, Robin?
I can just jump right on, yes? Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Robin Oakes again. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns. And as I said earlier, I am a co-chair of Out and Equal's Bisexual Advisory Committee, and also a co-founder of an LGBT ERG at a university. And I'm here to give a case study. So September 23rd is Celebrate Bisexuality Day. And I'll be offering a few suggestions about how to take advantage of this holiday to shine a light on the B in LGBT+. But first, a little bit of information. It's always good when talking about bisexuality to define it. So bisexuality is the potential to be attracted romantically and or sexually to people of more than one sex and or gender, not necessarily at the same time, in the same way, or to the same degree. Interestingly, up to about half of the LGBT community, up to about half of LGBT people identify as bisexual. And another data point, 43% of LGBT workers have heard bisexual jokes at work. This is some data from the Williams Institute out of UCLA, which shows how many people identify as LGBT in the United States. And as you can see, about 2/3 of women and about 1/3 of men who identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual actually identify as bisexual. So that is a very, very large number of people. Now, who is out at work? Research is showing that bi folks are significantly less likely to be out at work than their lesbian and gay identified counterparts. Looking at the chart, the blue represents people who are not out, the red is partially out, and the green is completely out. Over the years, my co-chair of BIAC, Heidi, and I have done numerous programs of bisexuality at the Out and Equal Workplace Summits, and we've used this opportunity to gather some anecdotal data. In our mixed LGBT workshops, when we ask those present how many people in their ERGs or BRGs are out as bisexual, the answer is usually 0. Sometimes it goes as high as 2 or 3. And this is true even in ERGs that have hundreds of members. And additionally, the out bi folks are rarely, if ever, in leadership. And when we ask bi-identified participants if they're out in their ERGs, this is people who are actually at Out and Equal, if we ask them if they're out in their ERGs, almost all say that they are not. So in their ERGs, they're usually presumed to be lesbian, gay, or allies. And when asked, some of the responses they give are, I hear too many anti-bi jokes, my ERG isn't welcoming of bisexual people, people in my ERG assume I'm gay and I don't feel I'd be taken seriously if I came out as bi. I'm out as bi, but people treat me like I'm an ally, like I'm straight. And we've even had people in our own workshops at Out and Equal saying, I don't want anyone from my ERG knowing that I'm here in this workshop. So I'm saying all this basically just to show that there actually is a need to do a lot of very, very basic education about bisexuality and to do some very important outreach in your ERGs and in your places of business. So how Celebrate Bisexuality Day can help? I would encourage you to take advantage of Celebrate Bisexuality Day, similar to the way that we often take advantage of National Coming Out Day, in order to increase visibility and inclusion of the bisexual community in the workplace. A few basic programming ideas. Invite a speaker. Share facts and data. Use social media to share facts and data with other members of your ERG and also hopefully with other members of your places of business. Share resources, point people to places where they can find more information and resources about bisexuality. And we would strongly encourage folks to have a discussion about bi-inclusion in your ERG. And of course, the things that you can do on Celebrate Bisexuality Day or during the month of September you can do these things all year long. In general, just learn more about bisexuality and challenges facing bisexual employees in the workplace. Be conscious. Be aware. What you think you see when you see someone may not be what is true. People may not identify the way you assume they do. Just for an example, having a same-sex partner does not necessarily mean that a person identifies as lesbian or gay. And, of course, having a different gender partner doesn't mean that they identify as straight. Also, just please commit to being an ally to bisexual people. Speak up if you hear a joke or a negative comment on bisexuals in the workplace. Stop biphobia. Stop myths, stop stereotypes. Make sure that bisexual people aren't erased. And then also provide forums to share information and to create visibility for your bisexual coworkers. Consider adding links to bisexual resources on your website. Include out bisexual people on your panels. So now we have a little poll for you. The question that we have is, please name the unique challenges that bisexuals face in the workplace. In other words, what challenges do you think bisexual people face that may be different from the challenges facing lesbian and gay people?
And Robin, we see the responses number coming in on the screen, but we see like being judged by who you partner with, invisibility, people not validating their identity, lack of understanding from colleagues, being labeled as lesbian or gay, stigma, not being out, constant need to come out to someone, ignorance about bisexuality, people thinking you're indecisive, lack of understanding and acceptance, exclusion. Let's see what we got there. Fear of being looked at as being different. So there's a lot on there. Do you want to make some comments about some of the ones you see over there?
I will say that you are making me very, very happy with your comments, just showing that there actually is some understanding of what's going on for bisexual and bi+ people. Thank you so much for your comments. One of the challenges facing bi+ people is that if someone identifies as lesbian or gay and has a partner, you can bring your partner to a work event and everyone will assume you're lesbian or gay, and you can come out without actually having to say your identity out loud. If you identify as bisexual or pansexual or one of those other identities that are not binary, I could bring a same-sex partner to work and it still wouldn't help people understand how I identified. Another big challenge is that bi people may not feel fully welcome in the mainstream work culture or in their ERGs. So sometimes bi people are faced with this feeling of homelessness, like there really isn't a place where you can go and have people enthusiastically accept you as you are. Another very specific thing is that bi people face real bi-specific discrimination on the job. My co-chair of BIAC, Heidi Green, has done some research on this topic, and one of the things that we know is that bisexual people get told, for example, you can't even make up your mind about who you sleep with. How will you be able to make the hard decisions about managing this organization? So identifying as bisexual can actually be seen as something that makes you less qualified for your job, because people falsely associate bisexuality with indecision. I'm reading the comments again. They're just wonderful. Although I'm having trouble reading all of them because, let's see.
And also, Robin, we can share those comments on the follow-up so that the participants can see that.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. So I think so many of these comments that have been written, someone wrote, having to come out all the time. People don't understand what bisexual is. Judgment, fear, no support, discrimination. Someone wrote bi-panicked, I'm seeing up there. Workplace understanding and empathy, not being taken seriously. People think it's just a transitional phase. So, again, all of these things to me point out that this is a really, really important topic that needs to be addressed. And, again, consider that about half of all LGBT people identify as bisexual. If you don't address the needs of these people, if you don't actively welcome us in, you're losing a lot of potential support, you're losing a lot of potential membership. And so, not only is it in the interest of bisexual people to be welcoming and inclusive, but it's in your own interest as well if you identify as something other than bisexual. So let's see. We also have some resources to share with you. And these are just a few resources. One is, the first section is bisexual community resources. There's 4 or 5 different organizations in the United States that specifically support bisexual people: BiNet USA, the Bisexual Resource Center, the American Institute of Bisexuality, the Bisexual Organizing Project. And then there's this new project called #StillBisexual. And I just checked with them to ask if they had any bisexual workplace videos. They do short videos. They said they do not, but I am going this week to do one and make sure that it gets up online. So there will be at least one video up there in the next couple of weeks that will address workplace issues. There's also a link to the wiki page that has information on Celebrate Bisexuality Day. And I think I will stop here to allow time for Q&A. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Robin. That was great. So this is Pat again, and I want to kind of bring it back together, because whether you're at the beginning stages or you're advanced, one of the things that you're talking about is how do we create programming and what do we do? And with Celebrating Bisexuality Day coming up, or Coming Out Month, or Pride Month, or any of the other events that happen during the year that focus on LGBT or on the other diversity groups that are within the workplace, there are important ways that you can make those connections in the membership. And a lot of it is planning. We'll just talk about the process. Many times what we've done in the past is in September, we've done this during the September town call, and ERGs and BRGs have said, we got to remember this next year so we can do an activity and an event. So it's part of that planning and looking at that. And when you're first getting started, obviously, as a member, it's about getting policies and visibility, your professional development. These are what's value added for you in those organizations. But as you begin to grow the organization, begin to get that information out, there's a lot of value that groups add into the organization, both from that consumers and marketing point of view. But again, how do you change those policy and benefits? Daniel and I talk about the fact we'll go in and train one day, but it's really the ERG or the BRG that continues to do the work all year long, talking to the right people, staffing the projects, getting the approvals, getting the buy-in, and making the changes. And then, of course, that enables and encourages the company to be stronger in their advocacy and social responsibility to speak up when bills come up or when there's something that happens within the company. And then we begin to see, and what we're seeing now is the trend in many companies is, well, we've got the policy, we've got the 100% corporate equality index, we're doing great. How do we change that climate? And we're looking now, how do you get this out to the middle managers and to all your employees so that it becomes a value that works through the entire company? And once you get there, then the benefits start to come in, and that's about the talent and professional development. That think about recruiting someone who's transgender, who the gender marker may not match with their visual presentation. And what does a recruiter do about that? Do they understand that? Do they know the right questions? And so again, these are all things that the ERG can do through that education and influence, begin to do that. And then obviously thinking about minority business and the supplier chains, and even encouraging that the companies that work for you as contractors also come in and begin to have those same values in that area there. And then finally the community part, and doing that, again, the advocacy and social responsibility. But opportunities to volunteer. Are there LGBT options of working at Pride if you're doing matching volunteer hours or grants? What about funding through your endowments and your foundations? And then what about the public policy? Will your company sign on to a bill that's been introduced and support? So all of these areas begin to work about a company that is working to try to move that. And whether you are saying, what's our first step? we've worked with several companies that are at that point, and we've advised them, and they've gotten started. And then 2 or 3 years later, they'll come back to us and say, hey, we've kind of gotten it started. We've got the basics down. Now where do we go? So there's a lot of resources, and a lot of what we can do is begin to make those connections through the work that we do and the amazing work that each of you and your companies is doing. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Daniel, and I'm going to let him go ahead and take the Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Pat, and thank you, everyone, for your fantastic presentations. We do have some questions that have come in, and if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we will try to address them. So the first question, and I believe this came in during the Bank of the West piece, but it's relevant to everyone, is how do you find the intersection of current events and walking the line of politics within the workplace?
Hi, it's Justin. Great question. And by the way, I go by him or he. I forgot to mention that earlier. And what we've done here is it goes back to leadership engagement. We have a good mix of LGBT leaders here that are out and very focused and high level. So having a frank conversation with them, whether it be one-on-one or bringing them to networking mixers, is the first step to get them in the dialogue. So once they are aware that we're having this dialogue, talking about different current events and or political legislation that's out there, their excitement to support and say, hey, do you want to put something out there? I'd like to have a quote in your article you're writing, et cetera, leads us to be able to go in that direction. So that's one way to have the dialogue and share information with employees and members in a space that is conducive of leadership support, and also making sure we talk to our HR liaison so they're understanding what we're bringing in dialogue and if it impacts any questions that may come back to them. Those are just a couple of things we did in the beginning. I'm not sure if that helps answer the position that there's other things we do, but wanted to leave it for other questions if we wanted to move on.
I can share actually something. Sorry, actually, this is Raul, and I can share from a medical perspective. It's something that's very, very real that happened a month ago. With the unfortunate event in Orlando, one of the key things that was raised again was the ability for men having sex with men to be able to donate blood, in that situation. One of the things that our BRG was doing and been working on before is working with the Plasma Protein Therapeutic Association in generating the right communications within other LGBT and groups, and especially in our different sites that, like where Renee works in BioLife, which we collect a lot of plasma for plasma products that we sell. It was really important for us to understand how we can best reach out to the LGBT community. So in this case in particular, that fine line between intersection of current events and politics is that through the PPTA, or the Plasma Protein Therapeutic Agency, we're able to influence what the FDA may or may not pursue or do, or at least we provide our voice as a company of how and why it's important, for example, not to have the deferment of 12 months, even now, for example, that you have marriage, which is already approved in the United States, but then the FDA expects you to be celibate for 12 months before you can donate blood. So understanding those nuances and what it means to the business adds value. And that's in a specific way, for example, as you're moving through your journey in your ERGs and BRGs, how you can specifically impact that bottom line for your business.
Great insight. Thank you so much, Justin and Raul, for that. So the next question came in during Robin's section. So we talked about the number of people who are out as bisexual in the workplace. And Renee was wondering if we had similar stats for people who are trans and not out in the workplace.
I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't. I wish I did. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure that research has even been done.
Well, and I think we made a good comment that one of the things that we found that the Williams Institute, as an update on those numbers, has now said that it's 0.06% or 1.4 million people that identify as transgender. So that's not necessarily out in the workplace, and I know that that's a smaller percentage. But I think Renee made a comment about we'll probably find those numbers are much, much higher. But I think there's beginning to have that discussion more, and I can go back and check with National Center for Transgender Equality because they just updated their study, Injustice for All, in the workplace. And so that information should be out there.
Yeah, another thing I would add is that there is very, very clear data coming out that shows that younger people are identifying as LGBT and T at much higher numbers than their older counterparts. And furthermore, that bi especially is much larger, but there are a highly increasing number of people identifying as trans and bi. And so we're going to be seeing more and more people entering the workforce who identify as bisexual, as trans, or with non-binary gender identities or sexual orientations.
Great. So we have a question here from Sadie, who is transitioning to become the new co-chair of her company's ERG, and she's wondering how she can connect to get resources on revamping the ERG, things like building membership, ideas for events, and opportunities to increase visibility.
Come to the Out and Equal Summit.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Kidding aside. No, really, I'm not kidding. As we were trying to build up actually the BRG when we were still at Baxter, that was actually one of the key meetings that we'll go to and really learn from the different workshops that they have available, and especially other meetings and learning, and actually in the hallway just asking people. What I think that I loved about Out and Equal, honestly, is that people are willing there to help, and your success is their success too. And believe me, Pat nor Daniel are paying me any money for this thing, but it's really true because that's where we learned a lot, at least in my experience.
Thank you, Raul.
I second that, Raul.
Yeah, and this is Pat. And I know that's, for a lot of people, they say, well, I didn't make the lottery. I didn't get selected to go to the summit this year. But if you're in the Southern States area, that Leadership Day on Tuesday, the 4th, is a separate registration. And you can come down just for that. So if you can get authorized for the day, cost-effectively wise, you can do a much deeper dive. The workshops are 90 minutes. We get an amazing amount during the main part of the summit. But the Leadership Seminar Day really lets you dig in and do that. I know, Justin, you were there last year, and I think you got a lot of insights into what people were working on that were starting out their ERGs.
Absolutely. It was great feedback, and I think they wanted more. So we're updating the material, as others do all the time, to be more on point in what they want to discuss next time.
And I think the other option, too, is if you don't have the ability to join us at the Out and Equal Workplace Summit, you can always join us online. We do these monthly town calls the last Thursday of each month, and it's a great opportunity to bring your ERG together and have a lunch and learn, listen to the subject, and then talk about what your key takeaways are. They're also recorded as a digital archive, so if there are different focus areas that you want to address, you can do that as well. And then rolling into 2017, we will take 6 of the most popular sessions from the 2016 Out and Equal Workplace Summit, and we'll present those out as our virtual summit series. And more times than not, I'm pretty sure that there will be things on the ERG development with that there. So another opportunity for you to engage and enhance your ERG. We have a question here from Jason, who's saying that they're struggling to affect their ERG policies in their manufacturing facilities. They see it very much on the corporate level, but not within all facets of their organization. I was wondering if anyone could speak to that.
Well, Isabel, I think one of the things that we're talking about is being able to not only go global, but also what are some of those challenges. I know, Raul, that's a lot of what you were talking about with Shire. So I think when we talk about it, you get the headquarters there, and then you talk to somebody who's in Middle America, and they say, I still wouldn't come out for the company. I think that that's where you begin to form those ERGs and BRGs out in either regionally or working with them so that there's a virtual ERG they can join if there's just a few folks, so they can begin to have those discussions. And one of the best answers I have seen in terms of companies who are committed to really making sure diversity happens is saying for their middle managers, one of their performance goals is that they will have a diverse team, and that includes men, women, generations, LGBT, all the different diversities. And when it becomes a job performance issue for me to keep a diverse team happy, suddenly so many of the problems go away. So I think there's some good strategies out there and some companies that have done that. So if we've got some questions, we can always help and partner you with some of those companies to do kind of a cross-mentoring on that.
And this is Isabel, and I just want to make a plug. I'm I believe that there is one workshop at the summit that is specific to inclusion of the manufacturing sector, and they're going to be sharing some strategies for education and engagement. So I would urge you to look at the workshop description online and kind of get a sense of who those folks are and what they're going to be talking about.
Yeah, great point with that, Isabel. And we do have all of our workshops posted on the website, so you can review that and decide amongst your teams how to best divide and conquer so that you maximize your experience.
And this is Raul. Actually, just want to comment something which is very interesting to us, at least for our Austrian chapter of Be Equal. The majority of our membership actually comes from the manufacturing side of the business. And in that manufacturing side also is when we had a lot of colleagues actually that have been going, not say a lot, but a few that have gone through transitions. And it's very interesting for us because coming from corporate America, I was thinking that it was going to be more like a quote, so white collar type issue to deal with LGBT, but it was totally wrong. So what we assume sometimes for some places geographically, let's say the United States, may not be the case in other parts of the world. So something also to consider that you're truly being global as you're trying to think about your BRGs.
Great point with that, Raul. So we have another question in, and it's talking about educational events. And the question is, how have they been successful and what strategies have driven attendance for educational events within your ERG, BRG?
This is Robin. I have a few suggestions. One, of course, being feed people. Provide food, and also schedule your events strategically at times that people are really most likely to be able to show up. And then also I would suggest getting high-level people to show up, endorse the event, and let people know that that's happening. Because if you can give a message from on high that this event is a valued event, it is more likely, people are more likely to feel that they can show up, that this is something that the workplace values.
Definitely a great suggestion with that. Thank you, Robin. Food always goes a long way. And our next question is from Mark, and he's asking, how do you embrace being bisexual in work and life without the concern that you're going to be judged?
I guess that's a question for me, Robin. I also wanted just to add that somebody made a comment saying that in terms of getting people to show up, they also partner with other ERGs to get increased attendance and momentum, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. So thank you, Troy. In terms of Mark's question, it is really challenging because there are so many stereotypes out there. I think what I've done is I've just decided to, it's kind of, when you jump into cold water, I've decided to just do it. And jumping in, being out, being visible, being a presence, and being my wonderful self, over time, I think it goes a long way to dispel people's stereotypes, but it is a risk, and it's something that you need to be able to just do. I play a game that I call the as-if game, and that means that I just act as if I am absolutely certain that everyone will accept me exactly as I am, and that no one will have any issues with that. And sometimes by pretending that's true, it makes it true. If you have a positive tone and you're very calm and self-possessed, it can go a long way.
Thank you so much, Robin. And we are right about at time. I know that Justin and Abel had another commitment, so they needed to hop off, but I'd like to give the rest of the panel just a brief moment for some closing comments. So let's go ahead and kick it off with Raul.
My gosh, change is happening all the time, so embrace it. Roll with it, go with it, but believe me, there's always a path forward. Don't despair. Definitely come to our seminar to get to learn more about capabilities to influence change, so you know the process or method, tools available, and people and training to make it happen. So looking forward to seeing you there.
I love it. Thank you. And Renee?
Yeah, like Raul said, thank you guys all for being here today, and I look forward to any of you that I might get a chance to meet at the Out and Equal Workplace Summit. Definitely we live in an environment that's full of chaos, and although that can be disruptive to trying to move our plans forward, it can also offer opportunities, and I hope to have a chance to discuss those with you guys and make some plans.
Thank you so much. And Robin?
we are in a moment of history where we have the gift and challenge that our actions really can make a difference. This is a really important moment of history, and so our actions in our ERGs can make a huge amount of difference and make long-term change.
Absolutely. Great point with that. And Pat and Isabel, do you have anything to add?
Just know there's lots of resources out there. Don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel, and I hope to see you at Summit or talk to you soon online.
Likewise, please make sure that you check out our list of exciting seminars for Leadership Day and the tons of workshops that we have for Workplace Summit. Hope to see you there.
Great. And again, Justin and Abel needed to hop off, but I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our fantastic panelists for all of your insights today, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you on the call for your participation and for joining us. Once again, as we may have mentioned once or twice during the call, our 2016 Out and Equal Workplace Summit will be October 4th through 7th in Orlando, Florida. For more information, you can visit us online. We hope that you will have the opportunity to join us and over 3,000 LGBT and ally professionals. It's going to be one of our best summits yet. Again, this call has been recorded and will be made available as a digital archive after the session. We will also get to you a PDF of our slides. And there will be a short survey at the end of the call, and your feedback is important to us. So please take a moment to fill that out because we want to know how your reaction is to what we're presenting. Our next monthly town call will be on September 29th. How do we respond? Does my company sound LGBT? With our good friend Bob Wittick from Wittick Communications. And all of our resources are available online at www.outandequal.org under the Resources and University tab. If you have more questions on training, you can reach out to Pat Bailey or myself, Daniel Lawrence Smith. Again, thank you so much for your time today, and take care.